Oh, hello, yes. New week. Hey, half term. Hey, I'm at work. Okay, just want to do a deep dive today, actually, in a piece that I saw over the weekend in the Jewish Chronicle. I think it encapsulates an awful lot about the problems there are at the moment in terms of having any form of discussion in and around the state of Israel and its foreign policy, issues around Palestine, and issues around free speech on British campuses, and also definitions of anti Semitism. There's a whole mixed bag in this one. So I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into this, and I'm going to have to tread very carefully lest I get accused of anti Semitism. Okay, so this is headline: Students at University of Essex chant from the river to the sea to protest British Colonel's talk. Students chanted the Hamas rallying cry at Colonel Richard Kemp. Okay, fine. Let's see exactly what went on. Dozens of students at the University of Essex chanted anti-Israel slogans on Tuesday in protest of talk on campus by a retired British Army officer. Colonel Richard Kemp, the former commander of British forces in Afghanistan, was giving a talk to the university's Conservative Society about the UK troops' withdrawal last month. Colonel Kemp is a staunch advocate of Israel's right to defend itself, and his appearance provoked a protest from students who claimed in a statement issued that he was attempting to, quote, erase the identity and histories, end quote, of Palestinian students on campus. Demonstrating from outside the building where the talk was taking place, they chanted, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Okay, fine. Yes, so far, so free speech. That's actually the way that free speech works. You notice that someone turns up and they want to talk about something, and a group of people disagree with them, and they turn up and shout things. That's actually the way that free speech works. There's nothing actually wrong with that. This, as far as I can make out, the Jewish Chronicle was the only paper to report this, so obviously there wasn't a riot. Yes, moving on. From the river to the sea is a common refrain made by anti-Israel campaigners who advocate the dismantling of the Jewish state. It has long been a Hamas rallying cry. This is where this article starts to get a little bit sticky, shall we say. Is a common refrain made by anti-Israel campaigners who advocate the dismantling of the Jewish state. I don't know, some of them might do. However, there's no indication in this article that anybody who was demonstrating at the university wishes to dismantle the Jewish state. It's simply been lumped in. From the river to the sea has a very long history. I'll post some stuff below so you can look for yourself. Hamas rallying cry? Well, I don't know. When I read that, I was thinking back to chants during the 1980s. People used to shout, "Maggie, Maggie, Maggie, out, out, out." And one might argue that that was an anti-woman slogan. But it wasn't misogynistic, was it? It's a bit of a reach there. It is a bit of a reach. And this is what this article, the reason I have problems with this article is it often lumps a number of different things in together as one, which would be wrong, let's face it, journalists. Yeah. A spokesperson for the Pinsker Center, a think tank which defends free speech on campus and campaigns against anti-Semitism, said there is now enormous pressure on student unions to permanently blacklist and no platform anyone deemed to be remotely sympathetic to Israel, even if they don't speak on the subject. Colonel Kemp is not an Israeli, his talk had nothing to do with Israel, and yet Israel was the driving force of an aggressive and threatening protest, which was happy to deploy a well-known racist chant. Clearly the violent atmosphere on campus urgently needs to be considered. Notice that we use the word violent there. People chanting is now apparently violent. Racist. Again, not quite sure if it was a racist kind of chant. And again, this is a free speech issue. You know, if somebody was coming round where I was, who was a well-known fascist, and they were talking about flower arranging, I think people might demonstrate about them being a fascist rather than the subject of their talk. Just going to put that one out there. Again, clearly the violent atmosphere on campus urgently needs to be considered. Violent. People protesting. Standing around chanting with placards is now violence, is it? It's a stretch. Again, it's a stretch. Yeah, okay, yeah. We don't like what you have to say, and therefore we're going to accuse you of being violent, despite the fact all you're doing is shouting a bit. Free speech. It's a free speech thing. It gets more interesting. Okay, in February 2019, more than 200 students at the university voted against the creation of a Jewish society on campus. Despite opposition, the vote was carried, and a Jewish society was formed. Good. I do like the number 200 there, completely out of context. 200 out of what? 200 out of 205? 200 out of 2,000? 200 out of 20,000? No context here at all. So, in other words, there was a vote, and the vote was carried, and the Jewish society was formed. Good. I'm very pleased about that. But you will notice that the emphasis here is those bad people that want things to be stopped. Yeah, democracy. Democracy has won here. Hurrah! The same year, Dr. Maruf Ali, a lecturer on computers and electronics, was dismissed from the university after writing on social media that, quote, the Zionists next want to create a society here at our university, end quote. Following his dismissal, Dr. Ali denied anti-Semitism and insisted that students voting against the creation of a Jewish society on campus was against the ideology of Zionism. He said, quote, I'm not against Jews, I don't hate their religion, their people or their culture. I believe that everyone should be allowed to form any society. This is what I'm now thinking, which is what I didn't think at the time. Okay, end quote. Okay, good. You'll notice here, this is not a symbol of anti-Semitism per se, but this is a symbol of an anti-racist policy that appears to be working. And the guy has said, yeah, I'm probably wrong. Good. There you go. That's brilliant, isn't it? Now, trickiness here. Zionism gets to be a problem. There are plenty of people who are not anti-Jewish, who are anti-Zionist. Not going to go any further into that. You'll need to look this stuff up for yourself. But often, again, they are confused. The two issues are confused and get lumped into one as a form of anti-Semitism. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Earlier this year, the Pinsker Centre published a report detailing that student unions and faculty bodies at a quarter of the UK's top 40 universities published, quote, highly partisan anti-Israeli statements, end quote, in the wake of the 11-day war between Israel and Gaza. The report found many of the statements could be construed as breaching the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. Right, yes, the glorious IHRA. This is a document that comes with, should we say, a reasonable amount of baggage with it, vis-a-vis things like the Labour Party. If you look at the IHRA definitions, they often include things, again, I'll give you a link down below. They often include simply criticising Israel could be, emphasis on the word could be construed as being anti-Semitic. So you end up now often in the UK with anybody who criticises Israeli foreign policy with being anti-Semitic. I don't think that's the case. A bit like me reading this stuff out. I don't believe that I'm anti-Semitic. I'm sure somebody who's going to look at this video will accuse me of that. Perhaps I'm naive. I don't think I am, though. Alright? It doesn't really sound like me as being a naive person. Anyway, moving on. Oh, sorry, yeah, the Pinsker Centre is a newly established charity to promote free speech on campus. There's no records of who particularly set it up or where the money comes from or anything. Yeah, don't know about that. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, and the final two paragraphs are somebody from the University of Essex saying, yeah, free speech. Right, okay, there you have it. Not a brilliant piece of journalism, highly partisan from the Jewish Chronicle. It actually went under earlier this year, but was resurrected and is well read in certain areas. If you ever go into a synagogue in this country, there's a good chance you can pick up a copy. Certainly when I was working in Finchley, at the site of the North London synagogue, I used to see the paper there on a regular basis, often used to read it. But, the point of what I'm trying to make about this is when we reach a point whereby we cannot have a discussion about something, it gets to be very, very problematic. Lots of people I've noticed online will say, oh, well, we can't talk about Muslim extremism. Well, yeah, we can. But people feel very, very free to produce an awful lot of racist stuff in and around conflagrating Muslims with violence. And it strikes me that, for example, this particular piece in the Jewish Chronicle is doing the same sort of thing. When I read this, I just thought, well, okay, great, it's just a free speech issue, but patently it isn't. This stuff gets to be seen and labelled as anti-Semitic, and I'm sorry, but I would just have problems about that. And I think we need to have a better definition, personally, than the IHRA one of what anti-Semitism is, because it becomes a shield behind which you can't possibly discuss the actions of the State of Israel. And I don't want to live in a country where magically I can't discuss the actions of another state. I would criticise Israel in the same way that I would criticise Saudi Arabia, China, or indeed certain aspects of the UK's government. That's what living in a free society is, surely. Isn't it?